Oh no. You listen.
All right, another day, another Trump fiasco, and he gets pushed further into a corner. I know that you can't push baby into a corner, and he is a baby, but nonetheless, he's there right now. TikTok. We have a tremendous number of updates for you guys on how all that is shaking down, and then Turkish president's bodyguards get into a fight here, not in Turkey, here in America. That's kind of a bad idea. So that's fun. We have video. That's also fun.
It's a really amazing video, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah. Slash, there's an argument to be made that it's not at all fun and a really bad idea. Okay. So, and then I think, well, the Comey news is definitely the biggest news. But in the second hour, we have great news that on any other day should be the top story of the day.
You're talking about the introduction of the male romper, right?
Okay. No, I'm not. Slash, don't know what that is. But okay, all right. But let's go forward. What do you got, John?
Surprise news today, Sheriff Clark, probably familiar with him from previous episodes of The Young Turks, is going to be joining the Trump administration. That is slightly less surprising news than it was to me when I found out that he wasn't already in the Trump administration. But he apparently is announcing today, reported by the Daily Beast, that he's going to be joining the Office of Partnership and Programs as the liaison with local governments and police departments. Now, a lot of people extremely angry about this because there are few more objectionable people in the country than Sheriff David A. Clark. We could do an hour on all of what he's done, but at least 4 people have died in his jails, including a newborn. One man was deliberately denied water and died of dehydration in his prison. I mean, he's previously said incredibly offensive things about how Black Lives Matter is going to work with ISIS to take over America. He said literally, there is no police brutality in America. There is no racism in America or in its police. The list goes on and on. And look, his administration is a murderer's row of crooks and criminals and that sort of thing, but he stands out even amongst all of them.
Yeah, he's an abomination. Young Turks contributor and Daily News reporter Sean King did a dozen tweets in a row of horrific things that police departments have done in the country that were clearly racist, such as, let's go hang some niggers. Okay, that was some of the things that were said by cops, and he has different cases of that type of usage of the N-word in San Francisco and Florida, and the list goes on and on and on and on. I don't want to get the cities wrong now. You can check it out for yourself there. So, Sean's point is, for Clark to turn around and go, no, there is no police abuse, there is no racism among the police in America, is such an outrageous, outlandish thing to say. And you would only say that if you were looking to please people and get things like this, get money, get position, get power, and sell out your own people to do it. And that's exactly who Sheriff David Clark is. He's a giant, I'm going to be polite here and say sellout. There are other choice words that other people have used, I think appropriately so. But, even if you don't care about how much he ignores police abuse throughout the country, you can't let a man who let someone die of thirst in America, in his prisons, become anyone that is relevant to our security in America, because he's a monster, and he's, of course, as usual, grotesquely incompetent, which I know makes him fit in with the Trump administration. But if our security is in his hands, we're all in a lot of trouble, because he does not care about your security. All he cares about is politics and how do I get paid by the white man.
Yeah. I mean, the possibility that he could, in coordinating with all these different local governments and police departments and all that he could spread these absolutely barbaric practices to more jails. I mean, he's already got a couple of bodies, blood on his hands already. The idea that he could take that national is incredibly scary.
Okay, last thing, if you're a conservative, you should also despise David Clark. if you claim that you're pro-life, an inmate was having a birth. They refused to give her help and refused to bring her a doctor, and she didn't have any help at all. The kid was born.
She was shackled during it.
Yeah, she was shackled. And then, of course, the baby died. So, I mean, he is the poster child for where you're supposed to fight against. Yeah. If you're pro-life, there should be no one you dislike in the country more than David Clark. He let that poor kid die, okay? Yeah. Dead. And so, for this guy to be in charge of anyone's security is an abomination. Just when you thought Trump couldn't get worse, he's like, oh, I got an idea. Let's bring in one of the most loathsome guys in the whole country and put him in charge of security.
Yeah, and perhaps even more sickening, there's some small chance, a 3% chance that he did it to distract from the news that broke yesterday, but I got news for him. We're covering both today.
Yes. Unlike cable news, we can chew gum and walk at the same time.
Yes.
Yes. Let's do that.
The New York Times reported yesterday on the contents of a previously unknown memo written by former FBI head James Comey concerning a conversation he had several months ago with President Trump. This is back in February. In fact, it was the day after Michael Flynn resigned, which is going to be important for the contents, and we want to talk about this because the revelations inside of it are absolutely mind-blowing. So Mr. Comey had been in the Oval Office that day with other senior national security officials for a terrorism threat briefing. When the meeting ended, Mr. Trump told those present, including Mr. Pence, the Vice President, and Attorney General Jeff Sessions, to leave the room except for Mr. Comey. And in fact, in some descriptions, he had to tell Sessions twice to leave the room. Sessions apparently felt that some would consider it to be inappropriate to leave Trump in the room with the man heading up the investigation into his campaign.
It's inappropriate to leave Trump in the room with anyone.
Exactly, yes. Especially women. But more importantly, we go on a little bit into the memo, and Trump said this once the room had been cleared and he was alone with James Comey. He said, I hope you can see your way clear to letting this go, to letting Flynn go. He is a good guy. I hope you can let this go. Mr. Comey did not say anything to Mr. Trump about curtailing the investigation, replying only, I agree he is a good guy.
I certainly wouldn't have gone that far.
Yeah. But it's very similar to what he said after a month previous. Donald Trump had requested a loyalty pledge out of him. He said, well, I'll give you my honesty. He sort of like puts just a little book note there and then eventually writes down. Now, he shared the existence of the memo back in February with senior FBI officials and close associates, and it is known by people who've worked with Comey for several decades that he does create similar memos throughout his career, and in this case has created them, including some that are currently classified, about every phone call and meeting he has had with the president. Now, this first one is a bombshell. God only knows what will be coming in the days and weeks ahead.
Yeah, so it's actually well-known fact by everybody that Comey writes those memos because he did it when he worked under Bush, and he objected to the warrantless wiretapping program, which was illegal in the beginning and continues to be illegal, but that's a different story. And he actually was a stand-up guy and did the right thing there. And when the Bush administration tried to steamroll him and lie about the situation, he said, well, I mean, I did put a memo into the record, and turned out the then FBI director, Robert Mueller, had also done a memo, and it corroborated Comey's memo at the time. At the time, Comey was at the Justice Department, so he was proven right and vindicated in that. So it's not like Comey's memos haven't contradicted a president and been proven right before. They have. Of course, Trump doesn't know any of this because he doesn't bother doing any homework. And that's why I said the day that he decided to keep Comey, I said on the Young Turks, for him, it's a terrible mistake because Comey's a smart guy and he views himself as a hero for better or for worse. Yes, he likes the spotlight, and yes, he likes to contradict his bosses so to show that he has principle. And Trump is going to be a target-rich zone, and that's exactly what he's turned out to be, and Comey documented it all along. And people say that the folks that he talked to said he was made very uncomfortable with the conversations that he had with Donald Trump. Again, he's not alone in that category, right? But if you ask the FBI director to stop an active investigation, that is obstruction of justice 101. Like if you look up obstruction of justice in the dictionary, it'll give you that example.
Yeah, I mean the classic example from Watergate was this exact same thing. The problem is that you said there he asked him to stop the investigation. So Steve Doocy told me through Fox and Friends, he just said he hopes he can let it go. He didn't order him to let it go. Is that different?
Oh.
You know, like if you're in a room with a mobster holding a baseball bat and he says, I wouldn't want to see your nice belongings get smashed. Maybe you shouldn't look into this, police officer. He didn't tell him not to. He just threatened him.
When he said, I hope you pay me the VIG, he didn't say, I'm ordering you to pay the VIG.
Exactly. Now, look, so we haven't actually seen the memo yet, and the White House is saying that it's not true. Trump has not specifically spoken about this yet. There is silence, perhaps the longest gap with no tweets from Trump so far, beating his previous. He's never gone a full day in the past year, but so we don't know what he believes, but we'll get to a little bit more of that in a second. We have one statement from a White House official saying, while the president has repeatedly expressed his view that General Michael Flynn is a decent man who served and protected our country, the president has never asked Mr. Comey or anyone else to end any investigation, including any investigation involving General Flynn. The president has the utmost respect for our law enforcement agencies and all investigations. This is not a truthful or accurate portrayal of a conversation between the president and Mr. Comey. So that seems like a pretty categorical denial of what has been reported. Theoretically, there are tapes of this, according to the president, perhaps, so maybe we'll find out more about it. But we did hear this. Again, leaks come out every day about the internal state and the state of morale in the White House. So apparently Trump was furious about the story, according to an official who spoke with Politico. He retreated to the White House residence within 75 minutes of it going online, leaving aides to figure out how bad the fallout was. He hasn't been heard from since. He is still pressing the red button to have Diet Cokes delivered to his room. That's the only evidence we have that he's still alive. But it seems, you're talking about textbook obstruction of justice. Super fast, let's go through this. Immediately after becoming president, he sits down at a dinner with Comey and asks for him to pledge his loyalty to him. Then, a couple of weeks later, he tells him to stop investigating Michael Flynn. A few weeks after that, he finds out through Jeff Sessions that Comey has requested more resources for that investigation, so clearly he had not called off the investigation. He then fires Comey, gives a pretext having to do with Hillary Clinton for why he fired him, immediately undercut him by admitting that Russia was on his mind when he did it, and then started tweeting threats to James Comey, who is now a private citizen at that point, about tapes that he's going to have of their conversations. It has every element of obstruction of justice in exactly the right order to take down a presidency, assuming, and there's no reason we should assume this, that our country still operates under the rule of law.
Okay, now let me add to that, because we ain't done with him yet. All right, so first of all, on the tapes, Comey's associates are now telling the press, oh, please let there be tapes, because they're, of course, confident that Comey is telling the truth, and Trump, for the billionth time in a row, is not. So now they're not the only ones who are not confident that Trump might be telling the truth here. When his own aides were asked about, hey, so do you know if there are tapes, and do you know what was said? First of all, they said, well, if there are tapes, we haven't heard it. Boy, that'd be interesting, right? And then they said about the meeting, it's not like we were in on the meeting. We had no idea. We still don't really know what was said. Now,
that backs up the part where he cleared the room for it.
Yeah.
Clearly they weren't in the room.
Now, if you're a top aide to someone, presumably you believe and trust them. So if someone in the press asks you, Politico asks you about this, you go, no, of course the president is right. That's outrageous. You don't go, I don't know, man. You go, I don't know, when you know the guy's lied every other time.
Yeah.
Now it's gotten so bad that aides are refusing to put their names on memos because they're afraid that Donald Trump will contradict them in tweets hours later. So they lie for Trump. They go out there and they go, oh, no, this fire in Comey wasn't about Russia. Then Trump goes on TV and goes, yeah, it was about Russia. They say, oh, it was about Hillary Clinton. He goes on and said, well, it wasn't about Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
It goes on and on every time. So they're like, well, we're not going to do it anymore. We're not going to say, do your lie, and then you contradict us an hour later.
Yeah.
Even on this one, he did the same thing. So... I'm sorry, when he gave away the secrets to Russia.
Yeah,
where
McMaster looked like an idiot.
Yeah, McMaster and Spicer and everybody else said, no, he didn't give away any secrets. And a couple hours later, he tweeted away, yeah, so what? I can give away secrets. I'm the president. Oh, yeah. So they've had enough of that. They don't believe him either. The dates are very relevant here because that dinner that he had with Comey where he asked for the Pledge of Loyalty was one day after the FBI started investigating and questioning Mike Flynn. The February 14th meeting where he tells them to let the Flynn investigation go is one day after Flynn resigned from office / was fired. So both
the firing was just a couple of days after he requested more resources. It's immediate turnaround.
Yeah. both times, the minute that Flynn is the center of an investigation, he goes to the FBI and goes, stop investigating him! Stop investigating him! That tells you two things. One, obstruction of justice, as we talked about. But the second thing is, Flynn's got something. Trump is in an absolute panic over what Flynn might say. Again, there's another story out where aides are practically tackling Donald Trump so that he doesn't call Mike Flynn, because that would be tampering with a witness. You can't do that, but he's dying to call him. And you know what the schmuck's going to say? It's not going to be sophisticated. He's going to be like, hey, Mike, don't tell him what we did. Okay, so, we might consider Mike Flynn's offer of immunity if he's really got something about a Russian deal that Trump's done. So hold for that. This guy's on borrowed time, man. Pence is warming up in the bullpen. This is really, really bad. And on the 75 minutes, I've got to go back to that for the last time. Imagine that you've got Democrats talking about impeachment. You've got Republicans not rebutting them. Okay, so Brett Baer on Fox News said there are not Republicans willing to go on camera tonight as of yet. And then White House administration officials said, there's this misunderstanding that all these people want to go out there and defend us. Who are they? Do you want to call them? Do you know how to get them on TV? Right? So they have no allies. They're like, did you find an ally? Yeah. I don't know anyone who's willing to back us up. So that's the kind of nightmare scenario that they're in politically. And the dude goes, oh, okay, you guys got this, and goes upstairs and watches reality TV. Are you kidding me? You retired to your residence 75 minutes into the biggest story of your presidency about how you might have obstructed justice? Yeah. You know why? He's a child, and he doesn't know how to act, and he doesn't know how to react, so he's like, oh, I don't know, and he runs away. He runs away. And then afterwards, when people start making up lies and bungle it because there's no correct way to handle this, he'll come out and be angry at them. Go, you screwed it up. It wasn't me. You did it. Sean Spicer did it wrong. Or why did he hide in the bushes? Or why did he do the lies I told him to do, but not do them well enough? He just wants to be able to blame someone else. He's so ready to run away. That's why Roger Stone's going around with the Alzheimer's rumors. Everybody's ready to pull the chute. And then, look, finally, on the Republican reaction, I told you the 3 steps before he resigns. One is Republicans start backing away. Chaffetz already did that. And then now Chaffetz comes in and goes, no, I got my subpoena pen. I'm ready to see those memos. That is a big blow. And then I realized,
1 week from now, he's requested all memos concerning communications between Comey and Trump.
Okay, so that's a big, bold move. And then I realized something that Michael Schur had shown in his reporting on TYT politics during the campaign. Mormons particularly dislike Donald Trump. Remember, Evan McMullin did really well in Utah, and it's not just because of Evan McMullin. They are immigrants to this country in a lot of ways. They feel like they are a minority that's discriminated against. They don't like Trump's talk against immigrants and Muslims. I know it's like I didn't know that, and Michael went and interviewed people, and it turns out that's a real thing. So if Chaffetz, who's thinking of running for governor in Utah, and is not going to stay in the House anymore, goes, hey, you know what? Let me see those memos. Let's see where this thing leads. He's in a world of trouble. That's step 1. Step 2 is his old enemies, Lindsey Graham, John McCain, all the people that he, went after come to shiv him. So on that note, we have John McCain saying, we've seen this movie before. I think it appears at a point where it's of Watergate size and scale. That is a significant comment, man. That is a Republican senator talking about how this is like Watergate. I think that John McCain might be looking forward to a moment where he says, I prefer presidents who weren't impeached.
It is a big move, it's a big quote from John McCain, because John McCain so far has been willing to criticize Trump, but hasn't actually done anything yet. He keeps talking. That's great. That's more than Republicans will do, but I would like to see some actual action. And you have Amash, and you have Angus King talking about the possibility of impeachment. I would say that, look, I don't know the Watergate history as well as a lot of people do, certainly Michael Schur, but it seems like it's likely the crime in this case far worse than Watergate, and the cover-up both more bungled and more all-inclusive. Like, I've listened to the tapes from Nixon talking about the possibility of intimidating the FBI into backing down. They weren't as clear as these memos apparently are. So I think it's actually worse in this case than it was under Watergate.
Because as I told you, and why I said, however long ago I did that he's done, he is not smart enough to pull off a cover-up. Not remotely smart enough. And when this is already bungled in an epic, historic way. I mean, who is stupid enough to come out and say, yeah, I fired Comey because of the Russia thing? That's unbelievable. Who's stupid enough to come out and say, yeah, I gave the Russians top secret information, but I could? I mean, what a child, what a fool, right? So he has no sense of how to do that. But you think that same guy hid the money he got from the Russians in a sophisticated way? No, he probably left it out in the open on his bed. Right? He probably put it in like Bank of America. It was like, I don't know. It's signed from Russia with love in the note for the check. Right? So, tick-tock, tick-tock.
Look, unfortunately, because there's so much to cover today, we're not going to cover it in depth, but there is apparently now a part of the investigation being conducted into the whole campaign and all the Russia stuff. All that is $850 million that were given to one of his business associates that then was turned around and put into a Trump-branded hotel in Toronto. $850 million coming from a Russian bank, of course. Even though we've been assured many times that he doesn't have any loans or any debts from Russia, hasn't had any business with them, we find out about, oops, maybe $1 billion.
Everybody thinks that Trump has hotels and towers and golf courses, that's his real business. No, his real business is running a laundromat. Okay, he's been running that laundromat for the Russians for quite some time, and not remotely smart enough to cover it up well. So, yeah, the Russians have been busy covering it up. You see how many people they assassinated since the election? 6, 7 diplomats assassinated, 9 people overall, people falling out of buildings, and the Russian government saying, I don't know, somehow a bathtub fell on them. Okay, so, all right, the Russians are busy doing that. Putin's a smart guy. Trump, on his end, there's no way he covered it up right. So not only is he a goner, soon you might hear chants of, lock him up. Lock him
Well,
up.
actually, we'll have that shortly. But I do want to turn to one thing, because you said that there's different stages of the Republicans possibly turning on him, and certainly John McCain, Lindsey Graham, a few others willing to criticize Trump leading up to today, but also with the Comey memo. But not everybody is willing to do it. So Paul Ryan, still a powerful Republican, I guess, to the extent that he can be, he was asked about the Comey memo, and here's what he said.
Let me tell you what I told our members just this morning. We need the facts. It is obvious there are some people out there who want to harm the president, but we have an obligation to carry out our oversight regardless of which party is in the White House. And that means before rushing to judgment, we get all the pertinent information. And I'm sure we're going to want to hear from Mr. Comey about why, if this happens as he allegedly describes, why I didn't take action at the time. But the point is this. We can't deal with speculation and innuendo. And there's clearly a lot of politics being played.
The framing on that is amazing. We have to take seriously, it doesn't matter if it's a Republican, we have to take seriously our obligation to look into James Comey. What did he do? Should he go to jail?
No, but this is step 3. So the last step is Paul Ryan finishes him. And
He says he has the utmost confidence in Donald Trump.
Oh, of course he does. And so we're not there yet, but this is the beginning of the end. So Paul Ryan's not saying, oh, I've lost confidence. No, if he said that, we're already done, right? But for him to say, hey, listen, Democrat or Republican, we have to investigate. Now, that's a talking point that you can say, but the question is, what do you follow it up with? When he said, we support the subpoenas of the Oversight Committee, that means go ahead and get the memos, and we know what a schmuck this guy is, and we know what those memos are going to show. So he's at least got the shiv out. It isn't in Trump yet, but it's coming.
Okay. Possibility. Do you want to take our first break before we turn?
Apparently.
You maybe get some water. Maybe it's not a bad idea. So, look, when we come back from this break, obviously the shutting down of the investigation, that's the big headline from the memo. But there's actually another section to it that's scary in a whole different way, in a different area, and we'll get to that after this break. I'm David Sirota. I am the senior editor for investigations at the International Business Times. I'm becoming a contributor at TYT for TYT Politics. I cover the intersection of
politics, money, finance, and business. We have a media system in this country that is dominated by major corporations that have their own interests before Congress and before state legislatures. And so, in many cases, that media system doesn't aggressively or adversarially cover issues of corporate power and corporate political control of American government. Independent media is really a critical piece of America's media infrastructure right now, and needs to become an even bigger piece of that American media infrastructure, because there's so many issues that traditional legacy media is not really interested in covering, because to cover those issues, those media companies would have to raise questions that might be uncomfortable for those media companies. If you watch traditional legacy media today, what you see is almost a mirror image of what you see on a place like ESPN and SportsCenter. It's a lot of coverage of the horse race, a lot of coverage of gossip, a lot of commentary about the competition between different politicians and political parties, without really getting to the actual issues that are affecting millions and millions of Americans every day. There's a lot of questions about what can people do right now, and people, I think, rightly feel motivated to be more engaged and ask how they can take action in the political arena. And I think one way you can take action is to support real accountability journalism, independent journalism. That is a way to shine a spotlight on what's going on. This is not easy work. It requires time. It requires travel. It requires research expenses. That all requires resources. So if you want one thing you can do to take action and make a difference, it's to, as much as you can, support that work of independent, nonpartisan accountability journalism, so that more facts come to light, so that more people of any political stripe feel empowered to take the action that they feel is best.
Hey, what's up? Aaron, what do you like better? The rabies or the rabies? Go.
We talk about TYT Army being so strong. Usually they help us run our show. Now they're going to help us run the country.
Oh, like this.
It's time that we reclaim democracy for the people.
We had a huge victory for Wolfpack.
When Lincoln said this was a country by, of, and for, he said of the people, not of corporations.
Our representatives don't represent us. Whoa! Democracy! United! We are! We are! Too strong! Stop. There's thousands of volunteers, and you could be among them.
With Wolfpack, the mission is so clear.
Money is killing our democracy. 96% of Americans want it. When you get the power back, oh, that feels good. This is just the beginning. Let's go get them, man. Up and at 'em. Knock, knock. We're coming for them! Wolf-pack.com. Young Turks, Cenk Uygur, John Idarola with you guys today. Let me read some tweets for you guys. Hashtag TYT Live to talk to us live during the show. Of course, it's live 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern. I love that we're back on Sirius. You guys get it a couple hours later, but bless your hearts. It feels so good to be back on Sirius XM. All right, Kalolo writes in, does Cenk realize he's a civil rights leader? No, I do not, but thank you. He says, that's what I call him when I tell people about him because it's true. Well, that is maybe the kindest thing anybody's ever said about me, but thank you very much. He's, I think it was, of course, in reference to the Clark story. And Muriel says about Sheriff David Clark, Clark is the epitome of an Uncle Tom right next to Ben Carson. Now, I didn't say it, Muriel said it. Chris Durant says Trump is still hiring people into his administration. What's the point of doing that if he's about to get impeached? Okay. John Miller says, quoting me, unlike cable news, we can chew and walk gum at the same time. He says, love him or hate him, Jake is definitely a real person.
Unlike cable news, we can't get idioms right.
Yeah.
We just can't do it.
Okay, I'm going to have to make a note to the editors on walking gum. We're going to take that out. Yeah, okay, anyway. Thank you guys for the tweets. One more quick thing for you guys. Did you guys notice John's shirt?
Oh, come on.
Okay.
Come on, the shirt.
Jurassic Brick.
New design for the graphics department. That is awesome. One of my favorite movies. That's just a great design.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I love it. In fact, I almost wore the same exact shirt today, which would have been awkward.
I always have backup shirts just in case.
Instead, I went with millennial pink.
That's the avocado toast of shirts.
All right, what's next? Anyway, what's next is giant breaking news, by the way. Sorry.
Dramatic breaking news. According to the Justice Department, this just came out, so we're light on details. They are appointing a special prosecutor to investigate Russia's alleged involvement in the 2016 presidential election. This is coming out from Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, who you probably heard a lot about over the past 2 weeks, saying this about, by the way, former FBI Director Robert Mueller, who we were just speaking about, is going to be the special prosecutor. This is what Rosenstein said in a statement. Based upon the unique circumstances, the public interest requires me to place this investigation under the authority of a person who exercises a degree of independence from the normal chain of command. Oh, a degree. That's good. Why not total independence? Anyway, a special counsel is necessary in order for the American people to have full confidence in the outcome. Our nation is grounded in the rule of law, and the public must be assured that government officials administer the law fairly. So let me interpret this piece of news for you guys.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Not yet, but close. Okay? So, ladies and gentlemen, we got... Okay, so...
we played that when he fired him, by the way, the ladies and gentlemen.
I know. No, it's on its way. So this is great news. So what people were asking for was a special prosecutor. This is gigantic news. We now have the special prosecutor. What I was really worried about was that Trump was going to pick like Rudy Giuliani or Tiffany Trump or Bo Dietl or
Steve Doocy.
Right, some guy he likes on Fox News. So Rosenstein, who is the Deputy Attorney General, now remember, the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, has recused himself, kind of, from dealing with the Russian investigation. Rosenstein is more trusted by bipartisan officials in D.C. Now delivers and picks Robert Mueller. Now, Robert Mueller was FBI director under Bush, so, okay. But here's what we know about Mueller and why I'm very excited by this. He's the guy who backed up Comey during the Bush saga when they did the warrantless wiretapping, and Comey drew the line and said that's illegal. You, the Bush administration, are not allowed to do that. And the guy who backed him up was then FBI Director Robert Mueller. Now that Robert Mueller is now the special prosecutor. Trump. Look, if there's nothing, then Mueller will say there's nothing. And we have a lot of circumstantial evidence already in the public record, right? Yeah. But we don't have a smoking gun. Well, him saying, let Flynn go. Okay, as long as that we can prove that.
And he fires him and said he had Russia on his mind when he did it.
Right. Now, if we can prove all that, if you've got the memos, especially if you have the tapes, etc., he's a goner, right? But that's Mueller's job. And Mueller is going to be very careful, and I think he's as nonpartisan as we could have hoped for. Yeah. So, and he's a professional. And I think that if you bring that professional in, they're going to do their due diligence, and they're going to find a ton of evidence against Trump.
Exactly. I mean, look, it could take months. It could take longer than that. And I would say to Robert Mueller, if you have any conversations with Donald Trump, take very detailed memos afterward. They could be important, maybe. And understand that while this is going to be going on, and hopefully there won't be obstruction of this portion, You also have a second Senate committee asking Comey to come and testify. It seems likely at this point that that's going to happen, especially once those documents come out within the next week. So a lot of things are going on. They're not directly connected necessarily, the multiple facets of this investigation, but this is a new one. It's one that we definitely needed. I know a lot of people have been calling for a special prosecutor. Tons of politicians at last night's town hall. Bernie Sanders was calling for it again, and so this is definitely a good development.
Can I be the
Debbie Downer?
Yeah. Okay, nobody knows. I don't work with the Department of Justice. I don't know how special prosecutors work, exactly what he's going to be focused on, but it sounds like he's going to be focused on whether or not the Russians interfered with the election, the day of the election. Not about with collusion, not about any kind of, the way that Flynn was set up to be blackmailed, not about how they owed him something, or the way the conversations were possibly had and said, if I'm elected, I'll give you this, I'll give you that, the way we think possibly happened. None of that doesn't seem like, maybe I'm wrong, I'm just sitting here, it doesn't seem like that's the focus. The focus is, did they get inside the old D-vote machines and change our votes? And I can say, we found out they didn't, the Russians didn't hack our voting machines and change election results. And Hillary actually won all those states that she actually lost because she should have. So it's not that that's what they're looking for. They're potentially looking for that they did that. And when they come out and say, no, they didn't hack the machines, then the narrative is going to say, you see, everything you said about the Russian collusion is BS. And that's not going to be accurate, and it's going to let them walk. It's facade.
I don't read that into this statement. It's possible that that's what they're going to do. Look, at this point, I wish that he would focus on Comey's time as head of the FBI under Trump, because it seems like that is an area where, again, like with Watergate, where the cover-up is worse than the crime, it's looking pretty bad at this point. I don't know that it's worse than the crime, but it's pretty bad.
No, the crime's really bad.
Yeah. The cover-up is bad, too.
Okay, JR is our resident skeptic and playing that role well today.
But that said, please edit that portion of the video out.
Yes. No, that's already gone.
I hope, Mary, I hope that you can see fit to remove that part of the video. I hope. JR's a nice guy, but I hope you can see fit to make that.
He's not ordering you, he's just saying he hopes. Look, the Whitewater investigation was supposed to be about some real estate deal in Arkansas, which many, many years later they did realize Bill Clinton didn't do anything wrong in Whitewater. But what'd they get him on? Sleeping with an intern. It starts somewhere, it ends somewhere else completely. Now, that was a witch hunt, right? And that was politics, and they did it on purpose, and Ken Starr's whole point was to get Clinton by hook or by crook. Now, Mueller's not that guy, but if Mueller is honest, maybe that's a big if, but I'm hopeful on it. All he has to do is scratch the surface. Again, maybe I'm wrong about all of it. Maybe Trump is some sort of mad genius, and no, I'm not wrong about that. So Mueller's going to find plenty of stuff. Yeah. So we'll see. They will figure this out, and hopefully one day I'll do a big told you, and we will play this to its conclusion.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got...
Not yet, though. Not yet.
We what? What did we do? Stay tuned.
Bottom line, I'm just saying. I think I'm seeing it.
You're wrong. Okay, let's turn to a slightly different angle on this as we close out the Comey memo portion. While people are understandably focusing on the portion of the Comey memo where Trump apparently pressures the head of the FBI to stop investigating one of his buddies, there was another section that's scary in a very different area. I mean, the first part, you have him pressuring government officials to not investigate. But here you have an area on the media. This is what it said. Alone in the Oval Office, Mr. Trump began the discussion by condemning leaks to the news media, saying that Mr. Comey should consider putting reporters in prison for publishing classified information, according to one of Mr. Comey's associates who had the memo shared with him at that point. So this is not exactly the first time that Trump has talked about imprisoning journalists, changing the laws in terms of libel and slander and those sorts of things. But here he's talking to the then head of the FBI and saying the people who receive and publish leaked information, which is one of the things historically journalists do in America and abroad, that they should be imprisoned. And again, this is an area where it goes beyond just the content of the investigation into Russia or whatever the topic is. Once he has a more friendly head of the FBI in, he is a guy who philosophically thinks that journalists who publish things he doesn't like should end up in jail. And that's scary going forward in any area.
So, as usual, he doesn't understand the concept of America. You think he's read the Constitution? Come on. care how much of a Trump supporter you are, you know he hasn't read it. You know he has no idea what those amendments say. So, and even if he did, which I will never concede that he has, okay, I'd love to give him an immigration test. You know, the one they give when you're trying to get a green card or become a citizen?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he'd get 1 out of 10. He'd be miserable about it. Anyway.
He'd fail a BuzzFeed test.
And you'll never believe the question he missed.
No.
37 questions Trump missed. You'll never believe 27. All right. But if you believe in America and the Constitution, I mean, boy, does it get any more central to the mission and ideals of America than freedom of the press? And if you just don't believe in that, and you think that we should imprison journalists because you didn't like them or they offended you, that's, it's literally un-American. And it's always like the guys who claim to be the most American and jingoistic, and we're going to make America first, and we're going to make America great again, who actually don't believe in the country at all.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a wannabe dictator, and that's what dictators do. Yeah. Authoritarian goons lock up journalists. And look, I think we've been slipping towards that direction far too much already. I thought Obama went way too far in that direction, using the espionage against journalists. And anytime you touch power, all of a sudden the people in power don't like it and want to shut you up.
Regardless of party.
Yeah, and when Obama did it, we said, number one, it is terrible on its face, and he should have never done it. Number two, it opens a door, and when the next Republican comes in, then we could have a host of terrorists fly out of that door, and here we are, and with a sitting president asking the director of the FBI, hey, can we just throw these journalists in prison for doing their job, which is getting leaks from the government. And by the way, his administration leaks like to no end, including the ones that he's in favor of, right? There's all these positive leaks about Trump, too. Are you going to put those guys in jail? No. You're only going to imprison the people who don't suck up to power. And that's the antithesis of what we believe in as Americans.
And, I mean, here's, like we always find out, he does X terrible thing, it has no effect on his supporters. If he literally locked up a dozen journalists, 80% of his supporters would be like, yeah, they were hurting the president, they were hurting the country.
They'd chant, lock them up, and they'd be enthusiastic about it, but that's because they're un-American goons.
Yeah.
They are. Go read the Constitution.
That's the way you said that was funny.
Okay.
Okay, well, I want to go to one more video, though. So there have been talks from a few people in the media recently, in government, I should say, Amash and Angus King. We were talking a little bit earlier about that, about the possibility of impeachment. I know that Bernie Sanders in the town hall yesterday said it's still way too early to be talking about that. Schiff saying the same, another Democratic politician saying it's too early, and I totally understand that. But for one politician, it is not too early to take to the floor of the House and deliver a speech literally calling for the impeachment of Donald Trump. That is going to be Representative Al Green, Democrat of Houston. Here's what he said.
I rise today, Mr. Speaker, to call for the impeachment of the President of the United States of America for obstruction of justice. I do not do this for political purposes, Mr. Speaker. I do this because I believe in the great ideals that this country stands for. Liberty and justice for all. The notion that we should have government of the people, by the people, for the people. I do it because, Mr. Speaker, there is a belief in this country that no one is above the law, and that includes the President of the United States of America.
And thus it begins. So we, of course, have Democrats now who are saying we should think about it, we should consider it, we're on the road to impeachment, we have the first call for impeachment there, but it doesn't end in Democrats. If it did, you could say, oh, well, it's just partisan stuff. First of all, Justin Amash now on the Republican side saying, now, if what Comey says is true, well, then, we've got to start considering these drastic actions. Now, Amash never liked Trump in the first place, but still it's a giant thing for a Republican to say a Republican president should be considered for impeachment in any way, shape, or form. Then you got Democrats again, like Senator Richard Blumenthal, saying we are witnessing an obstruction of justice case unfolding in real time. Yeah, it's true. We're seeing it right in front of our eyes. Then we go to the GOP again. Representative Kevin Kramer, who was a Trump supporter, complained that the White House keeps changing its story. Now, that's not anywhere near calling for impeachment, but these guys are frustrated, and they've got eyes like we do. And yes, they're professional liars. But as they look at that, they go, oh, they can't keep one lie straight. At least when we, in the good old days of Republican talking points, we'd take one lie, like, hey, if we give giant tax cuts to the richest people in the country, it'll trickle down to you. Yeah, we're doing it for you guys. Not for the guys actually getting the money, but for you guys who might get it later. But they would stick with that lie. And Kevin Kramer and the others are super frustrated. They're like, they can't even stick to a goddamn lie. Yeah. So they're incredibly frustrated. McCain now talking about how this is the size of Watergate. Bob Corker saying they're in a downward spiral. These are all Republicans. And then a House GOP aide said, I love this. This aide is trying to say we shouldn't go towards impeachment. But look at his quote. Quote, gross incompetence is not an impeachable offense. That's the best they got.
That's his friend. Yeah. Okay, why don't we take our last break of the hour? When we come back, we've got a dramatic video of the security forces of President Erdogan of Turkey attacking protesters outside of an ambassador's house in Washington, D.C. You're not going to want to miss that. But we're going to do a break. For those of you watching on YouTube, during this break, we're going to do a video for you. This is Donald Trump speaking at a Coast Guard commencement ceremony. And look at how quickly he turns the speech to be exclusively about him. You're going to see that if you're watching on YouTube, and we'll be back after this.
Over the course of your life, you will find that things are not always fair. You will find that things happen to you that you do not deserve and that are not always warranted. But you have to put your head down and fight, fight, fight. Look at the way I've been treated lately, especially by the media. No politician in history, and I say this with great surety, has been treated worse or more unfairly. You can't let them get you down.
Welcome to the Control Room exclusive members coverage of TYT Postgame live from Rebel headquarters in sunny Los Angeles. So Jason, the air is electric after yesterday's postgame.
He's talking about Miami. You know, the only thing about this, Jason, is we've heard the Miami stories. I'm looking at Kasperian's interest here. She's giving him the cordial glance to the side, but I just don't know if it's really there.
Oh, that's where the vagina is.
Okay, that joke landed like full 13 there. And Kasperian gives him the courtesy laugh, gives him the Edwin way.
Had you had sex at that point when you took that class?
Anyways, so...
Hold on a minute. He's found an opening. Is he finding his way to come back, Jason? Eyeball! Jack Dugan coming back! With a comment, no one would have seen this coming.
And he's in the mood, and there's some music in the background. He's got the sideburns, he's got the long hair.
He won't find himself. There's no way he's ready to. I mean, I've expected. He's got it. That's unbelievable.
Every dog has his day, and this dog is having the best day of his damn life.
That was an outstanding postgame. If tonight's postgame is anything like last night's, we were in for another.
Exactly right, Francis. And don't forget to check out the TYT postgame after the Young Turks every weekday on TYTnetwork.com/memberslive.
I just closed my Wells Fargo account. I just divested funds from Wells Fargo. I definitely urge you to do the same. Please come divest. Divest today from all the big banks. Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Citibank, Chase. There are so many others. Do it. We can make a difference. Water is life.
Robbie Canal, he calls his work urban beautification.
I didn't go out to be a street artist or to make posters. I was just compelled. I was bad enough. It didn't matter. It was like a form of minor civil disobedience even. You know, like, fuck you. How about your higher ground? Power.
operates to self-replicate itself to maintain the status quo so it stays in power. When you go to do something like this to express yourself in public about an issue you care about, make sure you pick the bigger weapon, and the weapon is knowledge. The one thing about street art, it's not like I put up my posters to change anybody's mind about anything. The difference between propaganda and the kind of art I do is propaganda is telling people what to think. The way the art works, where the art works, is between the time you see it and the time you figure it out for yourself. I'm an optimist. I might have made a lot of ugly things about a lot of ugly people. It's out of love. Not for them.
I know you're okay. We're just talking about something else, right? It's all inappropriate. Okay,
On Old School tonight.
but let me give you guys a poll real quick. Remember when James Comey was first fired, we asked, "Is Donald Trump done?" Over 20,000 people have already voted on that. So far, 73% to 26%, 27% saying yeah, he is done. But go vote tytnetwork.com/Trump. That's how you vote there.
By the way, so you said remember when Comey was fired? Like so much has happened since it was like 8 days ago.
I know. It seems like a year and a half ago. It's amazing that it was only 8 days. Every time we come on air, there's another giant breaking news that we have to read in a panic during the break to bring to you guys.
One of my favorite tweets so far today. So Lauren Duca, who writes for Teen Vogue, I believe, who got big because she was on the big story anyway. She just tweeted, "Lol, it's only Wednesday." Like, it's just crazy how much can happen in a week when you have a dullard like Trump as president.
Yeah. But, you know, when Pence becomes president, like, we're not going to get news for like a year and a half.
He's hiding in the shadows. He's in a bush in darkness, hiding.
No, he's in
trying to keep his hands off all this.
Right now, the Republicans are doing this. Anyway, Derek Martin says, "I don't know who's responsible for picking Mueller, but that's one of the best decisions out of Washington since November." It's not that long. But anyway, Roy Lehman. Roy Lehman says, "The director for Mueller needs to be scoured to see exactly what he's supposed to investigate. Meltdown investigators were toothless." Well, so, Roy, one of our other viewers actually just sent it to JR, and JR and I both just read it. And it says you can investigate the election and anything that arises out of the election investigation.
So kind of like Whitewater.
Yeah, it's that's broad enough to keep going. So I think that's good. And then Nick Berna says, "Don't forget about the influence of the Koch brothers on impeachment. Their boy Pence is warming up in the pen." Now, I'm going to give Nick a t-shirt because that's a really great point. Not because of the bullpen thing. I've been saying that now for a day and a half. God bless your heart, though. Told you, no, I'm kidding. Anyway, remember the Koch brothers, and we haven't pointed this out in a while, did not support Donald Trump. And they are the largest donors to the Republican Party overall. Now, the Mercers wound up being giant donors to Ted Cruz and Donald Trump, and they were his biggest donors. But the Koch brothers never bought into Donald Trump, and they love Mike Pence. And in fact, today, you know where Mike Pence, Kellyanne Conway, and Reince Priebus, and almost half the administration were? They were at a Republican fundraiser. Now, here's my speculation on that. They're going to get their marching orders. Are we still with them, or are we not with them? Because you know the real bosses are. It's not Priebus and Pence. It's the donors.
It's the voter. Oh, I thought you were going to
the voters. Voters. That's a good one.
The people. It's the citizen. No.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah, they went to go do a focus group of people in Kentucky. No, they went to their donors and said, well, what would you like us to do, master? Okay. All right. What's next?
Okay. Dramatic news again. Following an oddly chummy meeting between President Trump and President Erdogan of Turkey, Erdogan's bodyguards were actually caught on video brawling with protesters. So it's dramatic footage. We're going to give you all the details. We want to go to this now. Take a look at what was captured. Okay, so that's dramatic footage. Let's break down what you were seeing there. So, according to witnesses, the brawl erupted when his security detail, the president of Turkey's security detail, attacked protesters carrying the flag of the Kurdish TYT party outside the ambassador's residence in D.C. A local NBC television affiliate reported that Erdogan was inside that building at the time. Metropolitan Police Department spokesman Dustin Sternbeck said 2 people were arrested, including one who was charged with assaulting a police officer. And we believe that in the earlier portion of that video, you saw a gentleman on the ground being kicked twice in the head by people in suits. It seems like those were probably the security officials.
Yes.
Now, apparently, the scuffle started when supporters of Erdogan and protesters began to fight. The guards then went outside and immediately attacked the protesters on behalf of the supporters of Erdogan.
Okay, so let's break it down further. So the guys in the suits are the Turkish security guards. You see on the tape, you can see it with your own eyes there. They're charging at the protesters. Now, what we don't see on tape is who started in the first place.
Yeah.
Kurdish side, Turk side. I don't know. And honestly, I don't care for the purpose of this story because we're not talking about the protesters here. If the protesters, one side attack the other, that's an assault issue that the Washington, D.C. can deal with, etc. What are the Turkish security guards doing getting in the middle of a fight? And to the point where the American police have to separate them from the protesters. And while they're separating them, as you just saw there, they viciously kicked that guy in the head, let alone all the other attacks. It's embarrassing. So now I'll tell you my guess as to why they did it. So that Kurdish flag they think represents terrorism. So they think the Kurdish separatists, whether they're in Syria or in Turkey, are terrorists that are fighting against Turkey, so they get upset, and any attack on a fellow Turk is considered the worst thing in the world. So if they see people flying that flag and they see them attacking Turkish Americans on the side of the road, they think, okay, let's go bum rush them. No, you can't bum rush them. You can't do that in the middle of America. You can't attack and punch and kick protesters in America.
Yeah.
Now, I know that Erdogan's bodyguards have gotten away in Turkey with doing a lot of that. And
worse.
Yes, and we've seen the videos of them assaulting protesters in Turkey. But this isn't Turkey. This is America. So that's not what we do here. And so at a bare minimum, what they're doing is deeply embarrassing Turkey, Because now people think, okay, what's Turkey? A bunch of thugs come in and start attacking protesters.
Yeah.
That's not a good look, okay? Yeah. And second of all, just understand the concept, man. And that's the essence of the problem for Erdogan's government, which is, if I disagree with you, it doesn't mean you should kick my ass.
Yeah.
So, and unfortunately, they've built up a lot of power using intimidation tactics just like this. So, the tiger doesn't change his stripes. They come here and they think, who cares? Let's just do the same thing. We can get away with it.
Yeah, exactly. I think we have one more photo, if we can actually showing one of the suspected security guards choking a woman there. Yeah, and look, anyone who resorts so easily to violence, it's awful. But when you hold all of the power and you believe that violence should be the first go-to, you see protesters. This is America. You're allowed to protest, okay? To go out there and immediately begin assaulting people, kicking women in the face on the ground. There's many photos going around of women just blood streaming down their faces. Now, as we said with the MP's statement, we don't know exactly how many arrests there were. A statement was put out by the State Department earlier today, a tweet from Julie Davis saying, "We are communicating our concern to the Turkish government in the strongest possible terms." Great.
Oh, wow.
I guess that is something. And it came out slightly before we went live today that the State Department is actually working right now to ID the individual security guards identified in the footage, but they don't currently know who they are. And we don't know if they do identify them, what will actually be done. But understand that in the background of all this, Erdogan visits, meets with Trump. If there was one word critical of the Turkish regime and what they've done, especially recently in Turkey, I have heard nothing about it. And this is a regime, this is a president who still has thousands of journalists, police officers, judges, civil servants of various sorts in jail right now. Journalists in jail. Some journalists have been killed very recently in Turkey. And to have him here and to say not a single critical word, not standing up for any of the values that we supposedly represent as a country, is at least as offensive as the assaults we just witnessed.
But why would Trump do that? He probably looks up to Erdogan.
He's spoken very favorably about him in the past.
So
he congratulated him on the win of the referendum not too long ago.
So we just found out that he asked James Comey to imprison reporters who covered the leaks coming from the Trump White House. So as he looks at Erdogan, who's imprisoned all those journalists in Turkey, he probably thinks, wow, that's so great. I wish I could be like this guy. And then a power grab that Erdogan did to make him far more powerful and basically get rid of the old ways. You can't really argue with that. It definitely got rid of the old system in Turkey, which had more diffused power and centralized that power at the top. Trump thinks that sounds wonderful. Yeah. He probably took notes like, hey, Erdogan, you're at least smart. I'm not that bright. Can you tell me how to be more authoritarian? And Erdogan's like, no, I could do one better. Look at what my guards are about to do. Yeah. Okay, so I hope that Trump was not taking notes. Look, it's one thing that if Turks are of course upset about Kurdish terrorism and they're worried about Americans arming Kurds in Syria and where those weapons might go, if they're concerned about Fethullah Gulen, who lives in Pennsylvania, might or might not have organized a coup against Erdogan, well, I think those are legitimate concerns. Yeah. It's another thing to act like this, and you're not doing yourself any favors, and you're certainly not doing the country any favors. Yeah. Okay. Wow, we're out of time. Yeah. Okay. The last story was about how pissed Israel is that we gave up their source. Trump did,
and potentially got one of their spies killed.
And how they're very likely not going to give us any more information, thereby making us less safe, and how their source might be killed. Yeah. So imagine if Hillary Clinton had done that,
or Obama, if anyone.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, John. Everybody check out youtube.com/thinktank. And like I said earlier in the show, now when we come back with Anna, we're going to do a story that is actually in the midst of all this madness. Great news. Wonderful news. So that when we return.
Officer, can I ask you why you're letting some people through but not other people through? You understand? This is against the law.
If
if you watch traditional legacy media today, what you see is a mirror image of what you see on ESPN, on SportsCenter.
It's really not journalism. It's kind of become this vortex of infotainment, substanceless drivel.
They have so many resources, yet they spend those resources on talking about what the latest gossip is in Washington and Hillary Clinton's haircut.
In general, the media was clearly an elite institution, and the clearer that became to people, the less they trusted it.
Cable news hasn't been able to provide the information that human beings are craving in 2017.
OJ's trial, that was like the advent of the non-stop 24/7 news coverage because it had every salacious, scandalous movie plot you could think of all in one.
Outrage is their bias. Their narrative is, what is the drama?
I've seen up close drug warehouses, floor to ceiling, packed with drugs that were headed right for your children.
If you look at ESPN, they're talking about a game. It literally doesn't actually matter in most ways.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Because you'd be in jail.
When you make politics into sport like that, and you strip it of all the actual issues, you're actually talking about something that actually affects people's daily lives.
The folks that are part of the working poor now, or formerly middle class, these are not the takers. There's actually been a systematic con job by what I call the corporate media military industrial complex. Kind of long-winded. But there's been an active cabal of corporations, lobbyists, banks, politicians, and the media to essentially concentrate power and leave people in Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, Pennsylvania. It's not just the Rust Belt. I mean, all over the country, kind of scrapping for the crumbs. Very little coverage of like the everyday atrocities that are quiet.
It's the absence of a credible platform to ask meaningful questions of corporate and political power that is then abusing the middle class so severely, and at the same time in a way that people really can't tell where it comes from.
Come up with a new model. I mean, you can't be reliant on the same sources of revenue, the same sources of social affirmation, the same professional incentives as all the other people who collectively were responsible for one of the greatest mass failures in the history of the United States.
Investigative journalism so often is what changes the world. If you look back at almost any social movement, go back far enough, you're going to see a piece of journalism that opened people's eyes, got them enraged, got them inspired, got them to organize, march, protest, until they got to where they are now.
We're in a deeply problematic period, and it really requires us to stand up against the establishment, against anybody who is trying to manipulate the system and run over everyday people.
This is an important moment for journalism, and I could not have found a better place that is more supportive of asking these questions and going out there and pushing the limits. This officer seems to think that protesting and reporting fall under different constitutional rights.
And we need a strong watchdog journalism. Who do you think is going to do it? The corporate media? No. Luckily, we don't need them. We just need you guys. We're going to build the greatest investigative reporting team in the country. We're going to be the watchers on the wall. We're going to be the sword of the darkness. Let's go do it together. Build kick-ass investigators and unleash them on Trump and the establishment. TYTnetwork.com/go. guys. Back on the answers, Jen and Anna with you guys. I don't have time to read your tweets because we have yet another breaking news story. This is unbelievable. It's coming in so fast. Eventually, it's going to happen every minute, and we won't have time to read them.
Remember when we were overwhelmed when there was a breaking news story every day, like a big bombshell news story regarding Trump, and now it's every hour. We can't keep up.
Every hour, okay. So, new breaking news, House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy, apparently on a leaked tape, now he's a Republican, of course, said about Donald Trump that he thinks Vladimir Putin pays him. He says there's two people that I think Putin actually pays. Dana Rohrabacher, who has been all over TV defending Putin no matter what he does, and Donald Trump. Now, these tapes are from a year ago. They were during the campaign. Later, McCarthy turned around and pledged his loyalty to Trump and endorsed him. Of course! Now they're claiming, in retrospect, now that the tapes have been leaked, that, he was just kidding. But on the tapes, he says, I think that Putin pays Trump and Rohrabacher. His colleagues laugh, and then he says, no, swear to God.
He says, swear to God, and at one point, Paul Ryan says, we need to keep this conversation quiet, or private.
He says, no leaks. This is how we know we're a real family here. Oops. Well, it just leaked. So I don't know that Kevin McCarthy, the House Majority Leader for the Republicans, knows anything more than investigators do. But it does give you, at a minimum, insight into what Republicans actually think of Trump. So as they have been defending him through the campaign, and now that he's president, in reality, some of the top Republican leaders believe that he's bought off by Vladimir Putin. And they put politics above country and supported him anyway.
That's right. Not only do they put politics above country, privately, they have at least some suspicion of what's really going on, and they have decided to defend him anyway, knowing that he puts the entire country in jeopardy. There's definitely that issue right there. And these are individuals who consistently support unnecessary wars, and anyone who has the audacity to speak out against them is being unpatriotic. This is unpatriotic. Supporting someone and having unwavering support for them, especially if you believe they're being paid off by another government, is very questionable, especially if you're a U.S. Politician who's supposed to be representing U.S. citizens, not the best interests of Vladimir Putin or Donald Trump.
Okay, well, on the upside for us, apparently you cannot miss any live Young Turks shows anymore. Because if we're on the air, news will break. And several times a show, okay? So tell your friends, your neighbors, and even Randy Gonzalez. TYTnetwork.com/live, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern. Guarantee that news will break when we're on the air. All right. Speaking of which, we actually have great news for you guys.
Yes, so let's do that. Chelsea Manning has been released from prison today. This is as a result of President Barack Obama, or former President Barack Obama, commuting his sentence. Now, his conviction has not been wiped. Her conviction has not been wiped from her record. However, she will not have to serve the full 35 years in prison that she was sentenced to. Now, Chelsea Manning was released from a military prison Wednesday after 7 years behind bars. She would have remained behind bars until 2045 after serving a 35-year sentence. Now, I should note that while she's been in prison, she has gone through terrible treatment, including being stripped naked and left in a solitary confinement cell. She was initially denied the drugs necessary to transition from male to female, and they also attempted to punish her when she had a magazine that she wasn't supposed to have, but of course that turned into a big story, and things didn't, explode from there. Now, she did release a statement prior to being released. She said 2 more days until the freedom of civilian life, now hunting for private health care like millions of Americans. She also wrote, for the first time, I can see a future for myself as Chelsea. I can imagine surviving and living as the person who I am and can finally be in the outside world.
So I think Chelsea Manning is absolutely positively an American hero. And so back in 2010, as Bradley Manning, she got these 700,000 classified military and diplomatic documents and leaked it to WikiLeaks. Now, that's when a lot of folks go, oh my God, they're classified. Well, That was in the pre-Trump era. Now, in the Trump era, you could apparently just give the classified documents right to the Russians. And it's not that big a deal. You can expose our sources or our ally sources to getting killed, etc. Now the right wing is defending that. But back in the day, they were really against it.
Right.
But understand what we found out in those documents. We found out that internally, the American government knew that the civilian death toll was way larger than they were admitting in public. Now, this is what drives us crazy about mainstream news. They treat whatever the Pentagon says as gospel, when in reality, we know for a fact, partly because of the Chelsea Manning leaks, that the Pentagon lies and does it consistently and brazenly and without any hesitation at all. They know what the real numbers were, and they put out lower numbers because they didn't want the Iraq war to appear to be a disaster, which it was. So now, that's information American people can use in a democracy to make correct decisions on whether we should stay in Iraq or not. But the Pentagon wanted to manipulate you. They wanted to do propaganda because they wanted to stay in Iraq longer for their purposes, not necessarily for your purposes. So that is why they were so upset about the leaks. How dare an American citizen be brave enough to tell the American people what we're actually doing? And of course, probably the most famous part of the leaks was the Apache helicopter video. And the thing that gets under my skin the most, and if you're a real American patriot, you should be so angry over. We find out that there we killed journalists and first responders. You see it clear as day in the tapes, and we've got our guys, they mistake the cameras for weapons. Now, one, I would hope to God that they would be more careful normally, but they weren't. They weren't remotely careful. And then they laugh about it. They kill, and then when okay, now you can say, hey, collateral damage, so what? We killed a lot of reporters and civilians in Iraq, had it coming. I don't know why you would say that, but I guess some people could say that. But there is no excuse for shooting at the first responders.
Right.
I mean, that is a clear war crime. You know how many days those guys spent in jail? None. Zero. Free to go. You murdered reporters. You don't want to call it murder. You accidentally killed reporters. You shot and murdered first responders. Free to go. Not a day in jail. Nothing. Nothing. You reveal that to the American people? How dare you share with them the truth? You're going to prison. She would have been in prison until 2045, as Anna just told you. 2045.
Right, and also...
So I just one last thing, Anna. I think this was the absolute best decision of Obama's 8-year term. And I'm not exaggerating, and yes, I'll include every position that he had there, because everything else was half measures. Now here I think that they should have gotten rid of his conviction, etc. But at least Chelsea Manning gets to go free, and if Obama hadn't done that, this American hero would have stayed in prison. You know, she tried to commit suicide twice last year.
Right.
Okay, because it is maddening, the confinement that they have her in. So thank God for it.
Right. Look, I don't mean to rain on the Obama parade, but I want to be fair as well. Keep in mind that Chelsea Manning was arrested in July of 2010. So at that point, President Obama was already in office. It happened under his watch, and Chelsea Manning continued to be, imprisoned right up until the end of his second term. So, and it was a half measure. The conviction is on her record. Her life will never be the same. She's unlikely to find a decent paying job. Who knows? Maybe because of such a high-profile case, maybe she'll find work doing something a little unconventional, maybe working in the media. I don't know. I have no idea what she's going to do. But remember, the arrest happened under Obama's watch. She was in prison for a long time. She was treated very poorly for a long time. And yes, I'm happy that Obama did commute the sentence, but still half measure.
Yeah, no, I understand. Look, now you're opening up a can of worms. Should Obama put Chelsea Manning in prison in the first place? Of course not. Daniel Ellsberg never went to prison after releasing the Pentagon Papers. You know why? Because the Pentagon Papers helped America to see the truth about what our government was doing and make that in a democracy. Those are not leakers, they're whistleblowers, and Ellsberg is rightly considered an American hero, and Manning is just as much of an American hero. Yes, it was cowardice to ever put her in prison in the first place, and to keep her in prison for all that time, let alone what authorities called basically torture in the way that she was kept in solitary confinement over and over and over again, right? Now, having said that, we've gotten used to the barbarism of our government. So when they let up for just a second, I feel such enormous relief because they could have kept her in a dungeon and God knows what would have happened to her.
You're right. 2045 is a long time from now, and so I'm glad that she's free, and I hope that she has a happy, long life out there in the civilian world. It's just interesting because I'm curious to see what her reaction is going to be to the current state of affairs. I mean, she might want to go back to prison. Yeah. I'm joking, obviously, but things are not so great right now. Yeah. So, anyway. All right, moving on to some other news. Oftentimes when we talk about Mexican immigrants in this country, it's usually geared toward a lot of xenophobia, a lot of ridiculous stereotypes, but we never really talk about how Mexican immigrants are treated in farms and various states throughout the country. Now, there is a story involving the Department of Labor, which has filed a lawsuit against G Farms. This is a farm in Arizona. Apparently, the department says that G Farms housed about 70 workers here on a visa in a dangerous and unsanitary encampment composed of school buses, semi-trailers, a cargo container, and an open-air shed. So officials investigated the scene and they realized these guys are living in an incredibly unsafe place, right? They're not housed properly. They're not paid properly. Let me give you more details. According to court documents, the farm crammed 10 workers into each school bus to sleep in. The rear exits of the buses were blocked by a mobile air conditioner, creating a safety risk. The windows of the bus were also blocked. The documents state the air conditioner only blew hot air. And if that wasn't bad enough, an investigator with the department also found that the shower facilities were filthy and trash-ridden, and that an electrical cord used to supply lighting inside ran through the shower area and was exposed to standing water, which could result in electrocution. Now, the owner of the farm completely denies these charges and said, okay, all these things are false, but we found apartments and hotel rooms for them to stay in. No, but that's what you should have done in the beginning. You shouldn't have had to let it get to this point where investigators realized that these people are being housed in unsafe conditions. By the way, they were paid between 13 cents and 17 cents per bag of onions that they pick. And the farm owner says, no, that's totally fair. If you do the math, they get about $10 an hour, right? But the investigator said that no, they're actually making less, way less than minimum wage. These are all things that need to be proven, obviously, and this is a lawsuit. But these are people who left everything in their own countries behind to come here and do the work that Americans, keep it in real, refuse to do, right? And we continuously demonize them as if they're all criminals and they're all rapists and they're all bad people, when in reality, what we're doing to them is criminal behavior. The way that they're being treated is criminal behavior.
Yeah. Things have gotten so bad that I actually looked at what the attorneys for this company did, and I was surprised. I was like, wow, they were actually a little conciliatory. Not only did they get the apartments and hotels, they wouldn't be arguing against the government request for a temporary restraining order, and that the farm would actually comply with all regulations. Like in the year of Trump, I expected them to be like, no, I'm right, you know what? I'm now going to take away that air conditioner that's blowing the hot air, and I'm going to block both exits.
No. In the age of Trump, I would expect them to do what Daryl Issa did to a reporter just yesterday. As soon as you ask a question, just flip that person off. You know Daryl Issa did that to a reporter?
Who's surprised? Trump's talking about imprisoning reporters, asking the FBI director to do that. So now, we shouldn't have gotten to that point, though. We shouldn't be in this era. And there's two elements to this story. First, guys, I mean, is this what we're become? Where we house people like cattle, and in a school bus, in that temperature, and who would you like to live that? And then at least the second point that animate, which is like sometimes people go, oh yeah, we do that too, those jobs. It's no big deal. Really? Mm-hmm. You're going to pick out in the incredibly hot sun onions, then get 13 to 70 cents per bag, and then you're going to go live in a school bus?
And by the way, the big argument is, no, but the farmers take advantage of these immigrants. If they only paid higher wages and offered benefits, Americans would be swarming in. They'd love to take those jobs. But case study after case study shows that is not true. There have been farms that have not only increased wages, way higher than minimum wage, by the way, and they've also offered incredible benefits, and Americans still won't take the jobs, okay?
there's a recent case where a farm, got rid of 4 workers, hired them with Americans. 3 out of the 4 Americans quit within the hour. Okay, so look, is there a price at which Americans would do? Yes, right. But we haven't found it yet. and so, look, even if you say, hey, no, we got to do I think we should do it the right way? Of course we should do it the right way, okay? And so if we can find American workers to do it at a certain price, and then we all have to pay a higher price at the grocery store, well, look, that's the price of being human beings, and I'm willing to pay that price. And so that's totally okay, right? And if we can set that up, fantastic, everybody wins, right? Now, given that it appears that every time there's been a crackdown on immigration, and in the deep red states, Alabama, Georgia, etc., they literally could not fill the jobs, and the companies were going to go bankrupt, and they would change the law and bring back illegal immigrants. And Republicans going, sorry, it didn't work. I got to bring these guys back, right? So, given that, can we at least not keep doing it the wrong way, so that they're shipped and kept in school buses and paid these low wages, but have a pathway to citizenship? My God, indentured servitude was 7 years, right? In the bad old days when we had slavery and indentured service, right? The pathway to citizenship, the latest proposal, which was rejected because the Republicans thought it was too lenient, was 14 years of manual labor, and then you finally earn a pathway to citizenship. For God's sake, we can do that, right? I mean, at a minimum. And last of all, even if you don't agree to any of that, can we at least agree that they are decent human beings just like us, in fact, who will sacrifice for their families, maybe even more than us, that they're willing to live under those conditions so they can send some money back home so that their kids have a shot at least.
Yeah, look, for me, the biggest takeaway from this story, regardless of what you think about labor, who should take these jobs, how they should take these jobs, who should get paid, let's just put that aside for a second. The part of this story that drives me crazy is that we continuously get distracted by talking points that politicians feed us, okay? And it makes us think that the real bad guys are those that risk everything just to come here and provide for their families, right? The real criminals here, if these allegations are proven to be true, are the farm owners who mistreated and abused these workers. Those are the real criminals, okay? Those are the people that we should be having conversations about.
But you know what the Statue of Liberty says? It says, give me your tired, your poor, your wretched refuse, okay, on our teeming shores. So the people who are hungry and want to work hard and believe in the American dream, that's these guys. Those are exactly what the Statue of Liberty talked about. It didn't say, give me your incredibly wealthy looking for a golden visa, okay? And that is what now we're doing. We're giving away visas for $500,000 a pop. That's not what this country's supposed to be. And so, at a bare minimum, we should all agree to treat each other as human beings that we all are, with some shred of decency.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, Monsanto at it again, lots of drums, this time involving one of its pesticides and up to 800 people who claimed that they got cancer as a result.
Monsanto, you did it again! Okay, we'll be back.
I just closed my Wells Fargo account. I just divested funds from Wells Fargo. I definitely urge you to do the same. Please come divest. Divest today from all the big banks. Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Citibank, Chase. There are so many others. Do it. We can make a difference. Water is life.
Establishment media, corporate media, as I like to say, it's really not journalism. It's kind of become this infotainment, substanceless drivel, and horse race obsession. They all live in this echo chamber, in this bubble, because they have no idea what actual people are dealing with. most people have their jobs sent offshore or are now working 3 jobs, are struggling just to afford health care. I mean, in going across the country and reporting, I'm talking to people who have to decide between, can I take my medication this week or get groceries? They have no clue because they're more interested in, what Trump tweeted or the debt ceiling showdown, all this stuff that they try to prop up in terms of almost a movie script, sensational and protagonist and conflict and all this, and the victims of that are actual people. I think that's why people are responding to us, because I'm not out covering the sexy story. My biggest passion is kind of showing that the folks in the work that are part of the working poor now, formerly middle class, these are not the takers. There's actually been a systematic con job, and they've been conned. We've all been conned by what I call the corporate media military industrial complex. Kind of long-winded, but there's been an active cabal, so to speak, of corporations, lobbyists, banks, politicians, and the media to essentially concentrate power into one vacuum and leave people in Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, Pennsylvania. It's not just the Rust Belt, all over the country, kind of scrapping for the crumbs. So what do we do? I think, honestly, people say, oh, I couldn't do it without you. I always thought those celebrities were bullshit artists. But we can't do it without you. I mean, it took years for them just to hire me because they didn't have the funds to hire a reporter. Now they've hired two more and possibly more on the way. So the first thing you can do is, if you like me, if you like what we're doing, let's create more. The Go campaign is a great way. Even if you only can give $10, $20, it all makes a big difference. So if you can contribute, and that's not just to hire more reporters, it takes an army, producers, editors, researchers, cameramen, all that. So the Go campaign, as well as become a member.
Turks, Jen Canana with you. Perry Splits Tozer says, I really hope we can get a TYT interview with Chelsea Manning. Hold. Scooter the Shooter says, welcome to freedom, Chelsea. Truth always needs to come out. Marcus Granger says, I'm happy about Obama's decision to release Chelsea Manning, but I'd say the ACA saved millions of lives. Both are half measures. Marcus, and this is a silly debate, but Obamacare was a previously right-wing healthcare proposal. So how much credit can I give you for giving us a Heritage Foundation plan and then telling us to be happy about it? So yes, it was better than what existed before. Yes, it's 1,000 times better than the Republican proposal. But I just can't say oh, great job, wonderful, problem solved. Anyway, you should check out an interview that I did last night. If you remember, you got to see it live. It was with George Halverson He is the former CEO of Kaiser Permanente, and he's an incredible expert on healthcare and also child development. The stuff on child development at the end of the interview is amazing. Do not have kids without first seeing the end of that interview, okay? Or buying hell versus. I'm not playing. Edwin agrees. Everybody who saw it, Ja'Cory, Bart, everybody who saw it. I told somebody at dinner afterwards, they're like, "Oh my God, what's the book? I got to check it out." Okay. Turns out between ages of when your kid is born to 3 is monumentally important, but the details are important. Anyway, that's on youtube.com/TYT interviews. But what he said about the Republican healthcare plan was, it is horrible and criminal.
Wow.
Okay. So, anyway, last tweet for you guys is Captain Picard. That's why donors don't want immigration reform, neither stop illegal immigration. Illegals basically provide slave labor.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah, and so if you're mad at anybody in the immigration situation, the guys you should be most mad are the guys hiring the illegal immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
But notice, we never lock them up. Never, no. Right? We never address that. Okay, and member shout-outs are Jason Stern and Mason Kirby. Members make this show possible. It allows us to be the independent media that you see before you. And members also get the interviews live, like I did last night. And the post games. So we got a great post game coming up for you guys today, and TYT Classics today, and later. Old School. Oh, you're on Old School tonight.
I am. John and I are going to do Old School with you. Actually, Brett's going to join us as well.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, yeah. Quad Old School. It's going to be fantastic.
It is.
If the current members say it all the time. It's one of the best shows we do. And come check it out. TYTnetwork.com/join.
We should knock back a few brewskis.
Ooh, brewskis! Interesting, because I might fall asleep at the end.
Oh, okay. Maybe we'll
coffee.
Have some brewskis. Okay. We'll get you coffee.
Okay.
Or Rockstar or something.
Or hi. All right, let's go forward.
All right. Monsanto is facing a class action lawsuit which has been filed by 800 cancer patients. They are part of this class action lawsuit, and they are suing Monsanto, the maker of Roundup, claiming the company failed to warn consumers about the risk of cancer associated with Roundup products. Now, this is a really fascinating story because keep in mind that Monsanto genetically modified crops in order to withstand Roundup, and that was always super suspicious to me because it's not about genetically modifying plants or crops. It's about why you would want to do so. Why would you want to use a product that's so freaking toxic that you'd have to go out of your way to genetically modify it? Anyway, and they always said it's safe, there's no problem, except the people who were exposed to it at higher levels all somehow got non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Okay?
And they didn't all get it, of course, but a lot of them got it.
A lot of them.
And what Monsanto then turns around and says, well, you can't prove it, right? How do I know? Maybe coincidentally you guys all got it for a different reason. Now that is super hard to prove. By the way, that's why you have lawsuits.
Yeah.
Because you get to present your side, Monsanto, and you've got an army of lawyers. Other guys get to present their side, and that's how we adjudicate things. And then they're like, no, don't sue us, don't sue us. Right?
Yeah. So let me give you the details on what's going on. And when I said they all got this condition, I meant the individuals who have joined the class action lawsuit. That's what I meant, not everyone who's been exposed to it. Okay. So Monsanto says there's no proof that glyphosate is carcinogenic. That is the chemical in question here. In fact, it cites a report by the Environmental Protection Agency's Cancer Assessment Review Committee that said that this chemical is not likely to be carcinogenic to humans. Okay. But also keep in mind that someone who was working within the EPA at the time that that statement was released had very cozy ties to Monsanto.
Oh.
So that is an ongoing theme that you notice with Monsanto. And how do we know it? We know it through emails that somehow, we have access to that indicate that they had the cozy relationship, and also that they were working with scientists in order to manipulate the outcomes of certain scientific research. Okay.
And by the way, when they say there's no evidence that it's carcinogenic, that's simply not true. In March of 2015, the World Health Organization's International Agency for Research on Cancer said that it is, quote, probably carcinogenic to humans. So now there's been other reports in 2016 as well, and it goes back and forth. But look, if you are a rational human being and a giant multi-billion-dollar corporation says, don't worry, I paid a bunch of scientists and they agree with me, you know to discount that, right? I mean, please tell me you know to discount that. Now, if they have neutral scientists that have reports saying it's not carcinogenic, well, that's interesting. And again, that's why we go to court and figure it out.
Right, exactly. And just to be clear, there is some evidence as of now against Monsanto that I think is pretty interesting, especially considering the fact that emails indicate that they wanted to manipulate the outcome of these scientific studies, right? So I think that's super suspicious. But at the same time, you're right. I mean, you need to prove it in court, and as of now, it has not been proven. I just want to give you guys the facts that we have at the moment. Now, the World Health Organization's International Agency for Research on Cancer caused a stir in March of 2015 when it said that glyphosate is probably carcinogenic to humans, meaning it can lead to cancer. Now, the lawyer who is representing the patients in this class action lawsuit said the following, though. We are not alleging that our clients got cancer from this chemical alone. We are suing because our clients got cancer from Roundup. Roundup contains animal fats and other ingredients that increase the carcinogenic property of this chemical, right?
Yep.
So that's interesting, and so that's another thing that needs to be proven. But Monsanto stresses that the International Agency for Research on Cancer report does not establish a link between the chemical and an increase in cancer.
So they go back and forth on this, but the folks do have cancer, and
a lot of folks have cancer,
and they were exposed to Roundup. So let me go through some of Monsanto's excuses, right? And their different tactics. Tactic number one, and this is not just Monsanto, any company charged in a case like this, their number one excuse is, well, you don't know it for sure. You don't know for sure. Maybe that all those people got cancer. There's another case in Arkansas where they were by a river, and there's a company that's leaking stuff into the river, and there's an extraordinary case of cancer in that neighborhood right by the river, and they're like, well, you don't know for sure. It could have been the birds. It could have been the flowers. It could have been something else. You don't know. Ha ha, ha ha. Well, then if we agreed to that concept, then they could leak anything they want. They could make it as carcinogenic as they want and then say, well, since you can't prove it 128% that it was exactly what led to their cancer, then I win and I can do anything I want. But that's not how it works. You go to court and the jury or the judge decides. And you know what? A lot of times they rule against these companies because it turns out, yeah, of course, it is provable enough, right? And you can trace how the people were not sick before they are sick after a certain time. And if you have enough evidence, then obviously you win the case, right? So number two thing that they do is they ghostwrite reports.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I give you the details on this? I want to give you guys specific details. Okay. So a month before the IARC report came out in 2015, Monsanto executive William Haydens sent an internal email to company toxicologist Donna Farmer. In that email, he suggested ghostwriting parts of an overall plausibility paper to save money. Okay? He continues to say, if we went full bore with experts, we could be pushing $250,000 or maybe even more. A less expensive, more palatable approach might be to involve experts only for some of the less contentious parts of the report. Then Monsanto would ghostwrite the exposure tax and genetox sections. That is, I'm not putting words in his mouth. I just read verbatim what was in his email.
So what would be palatable is if we just wrote it saying it's safe, and only brought in the experts on stuff that's not controversial. Well, that would be palatable for Monsanto's interest. And guys, you know this, right? That corporations are built to maximize profits. They're not here to worry about your health. They're not here to worry about any of those things that affect the community. Their job is maximize profit. And so will they hire scientists? Do you think there's any chance that the scientists that Monsanto hired were going to come out and go, oh my God, it's really carcinogenic. You guys got to stop this.
Yeah.
You stop making all those hundreds of millions of dollars off this product.
No, just like how the Koch brothers, hire scientists to do research on climate change and then come out with the outcome that, no, climate change is not happening and it's not man-made.
Yeah, and by the way, there's another reason why you go to court. Because ExxonMobil and all those other companies say, no, all our scientists say that climate change isn't happening. And then once you do some requests for documents, you find out internal memos that say, oh, it's definitely happening, let's figure out how to hide it. Okay, so, let's see what happens. Now, the third thing that happens, which I didn't know about, and I've seen this, right, but I didn't know what the source was. I thought it was legit, right? Is whenever you talk about Monsanto or GMOs, you will get a flurry of attacks online, and they'll say, oh, you're anti-science, and you're a conspiracy theorist and stuff, and I thought, and those people are kind of riled up. That's kind of interesting that they care so much about this.
Right, and especially for people like us who are certainly not anti-science, and we love scientific advancements, it makes you stop and think for a second. Like, oh, did I miss something? Because, sometimes you come across comments that might be negative, but constructive, and so you might want to look into a different perspective, but then you do some digging, and you're like, no, there's some wrongdoing here based on these internal memos and based on some of this activity and behavior by these executives at Monsanto. There's something shady going on. But what they do is they use the same type of tactics that our U.S. politicians use. They hire trolls, they hire bots, and they go ahead and they attack people who have the audacity to criticize them and the behavior that we just laid out for you guys.
So, I didn't know this until it was just revealed. It turns out they're paying trolls to say that stuff online. So now, if you're a person who earnestly believes that, and you were fighting against people, one, are you sure you weren't influenced by the people that were paid to do that in the first place?
Right.
Now, I know you're going to get touchy about that and say, no, I'm independent. And I'm sure that I'm not sure. I guess that there were some people who earnestly believed it. But now they ruined your credibility, too, because it turns out they were paying everyone else. And so now when you see an online comment, and they do it on Facebook, they do it on social media, they do it all over the internet. And just like the David Brock's group did it, during the campaign, and then Trump's people did it during the general election. So they're paying people to put out comments going, oh, no, Monsanto's right. Oh, you guys, if you're attacking Monsanto, or you're concerned about GMOs, or you're concerned about cancer, you don't know science. Science is awesome. That's what makes us pause. Wait, we agree that science is awesome. We're totally pro-facts. It turns out it was all a trick. They're pretending to be in favor of science to push their corporate agenda in that case. So beware of people telling you online how, the true scientific position is to be pro-GMOs, pro-Monsanto, and pro these chemicals that they're putting in there that they claim coincidentally people got cancer from, but they didn't get it from us. They just happened to coincidentally get it in the general area. But if you say they did, I'm going to send my trolls after you.
I think the most important, this is the rule of thumb with every issue that's controversial. Don't believe us. Don't believe Monsanto. You're a smart person, and you have every imaginable resource at your fingertips. Do your own research. Don't pay attention to the trolls. Don't pay attention to anything. Just trust yourself, right? Because there's a lot of propaganda. I don't think there's propaganda on our side. We're just trying to report the facts to you guys. But nonetheless, if you don't trust us, do your research, because there's some shady stuff going on, and it's unacceptable.
So, and the problem is that when you go to do it, these guys have paid a lot of money for fake news and fake reports.
Yeah.
And so, part of their effort is just muddy the waters enough so people aren't sure.
Right, so they're confused. Yeah.
So that at the end of the day, we win the cases, and we walk out, and we keep making our money.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to the trolls commenting on this video.
Yeah, well, and the funny thing is, if you're a real person, we'll have no idea.
Right.
So, Monsanto trolls, luckily, you just made a lot of money. Go comment away.
Yeah. All right, moving on. A DC artist he's in DC, right? So let me start that over again. A DC artist recently caused quite a splash after he projected the emoluments clause onto the Trump Hotel in Washington, D.C. Robin Bell and a couple of his friends pulled up in front of the Trump Hotel in a van. They set up a projector and beamed the entire text to the emoluments clause of the U.S. Constitution, which, of course, bars this president from receiving gifts or payments from foreign governments or heads of state, onto the old post office pavilion's facade, as well as text reading, "Pay Trump bribes here," and "Emoluments welcome." So I Action was left up for about 15 minutes before authorities were able to take it down. But I love this because this is, first of all, I see this as a form of political art, and I love political art, especially when you can find loopholes and make it legal. And it says something, and it says something in a very strong way. So a lot of people took photos of it, took video of it. Experts agree Trump is a pig was a previous projection that Robin Bell had done. This was I believe right after he got elected, but nonetheless, it's a clever tactic that he uses, and it gets people talking, so it's great.
So the earlier one about how experts agree Trump's a pig was in late November after the election, and it's actually a throwback reference to Ed Meese, and that's what people had done in the 1980s DC punk scene. So it was an homage to those old artists, and seems to fit Trump pretty well as well.
Yeah.
I like the more clever approach. I mean, look, the homage is clever as well, but of not only putting the emoluments clause, but the exact arrow of pay Trump bribes here.
Right. Yeah.
And that it's a very, very real issue. Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington have already gone to court saying he violated the constitutional clause for accepting payments from foreign governments. Every time they check into his hotel, that is a payment to Donald Trump. And foreign government officials have said repeatedly in the press and in public, yeah, of course we stay at Trump Hotel because we want to make sure that the American president is happy. In fact, there's been cases where they admitted, well, we had our conference booked for another hotel, but we switched it and moved to the Trump Hotel to make sure that Trump was on our side. That's a foreign government basically admitting in public that they're, in a sense, bribing Donald Trump so that they can get favors from our government.
Republicans' inability to apply the same criticism that they used against Hillary Clinton on Donald Trump or themselves drives me absolutely crazy. Look, the criticism that Hillary Clinton got during the election, not all of it, but a lot of it, was completely justified, in my opinion, right? But why is it that Donald Trump gets to do, I mean, more than what Hillary Clinton did, okay? Times 100. And leaking classified information to Russia, violating the emoluments clause of the U.S. Constitution. I thought Republicans were pro-Constitution. I thought they were constitutionalists. I thought they wanted to protect the Constitution. They don't want to protect the Constitution. They want to protect their political party regardless of how ill-behaved they are. And in this case, you have our president taking advantage of his position to profit. That's all he wanted. That's all he wanted. He wanted to win and he wanted to profit. And that's all he's using that position for.
So when Hillary Clinton took money from foreign governments and in the form of donations to her foundation, we pointed that out over and over again on the Young Turks and said, look, she might one day be president. The Saudis and all the other governments that gave money to the Clinton Foundation didn't do it because all of a sudden they cared about health care, right? They didn't do it because all of a sudden they decided that charity is an awesome thing, and if they did, they might have wanted to give to many other charities. No, it was obviously to influence the Clintons. Now, if you were justifiably angry about that, when these same governments don't give to a foundation or a charity to help Trump, they just put it in Donald Trump's pocket. Shouldn't you be at least as concerned about that? And number one, of course you should be more concerned because it's just flat out bribery. He takes the money and puts it in his pocket. It doesn't go to any charity. Second of all, he's the president. Hillary Clinton could have become president. That's why we were so concerned about it. He is currently the president and taking this money from foreign governments. So let alone all the trademarks that were granted to him in China, let alone all the towers that have now been approved to be built in foreign countries like Turkey and Argentina and all the other ways that he has enriched himself, which is a direct violation of the Constitution. The Constitution doesn't say, hey, if you take money for your charity, if you're running for president, that's a problem. Maybe you should, but it doesn't say it. It says if you're the president and you're not serving the American people, instead you're serving your own interests by taking money from foreign governments, that is an unconstitutional and impeachable offense.
It's crazy. All right, let's do a little bit of international news. Let's have some fun. An Oxford University student is unlikely to get any jail time after she stabbed her boyfriend and assaulted him in other ways during a alcohol and drug-fueled argument. Now, the student in question is Lavinia Woodward, and she is studying at Oxford to become a surgeon. Okay, so why is it that she gets away with this? Well, we'll get to that detail in just a second. But she is 24 years old. She stabbed her boyfriend in the leg with a bread knife before throwing a laptop, a glass, and a jam jar at him during a row fueled by drink and drugs. Okay, that's according to Ross McGinnis, a Yahoo reporter. The boyfriend called her mother on Skype for help, but Woodward punched him in the face before picking up the bread knife and stabbing him in the leg. So this was obviously a very violent episode, but the judges decided that this young woman has a lot of potential, so she's unlikely to face any jail time. In fact, he has postponed the sentencing for 4 months. She will not be sentenced until September, okay? Judge Ian Pringle has delayed sentencing for 4 months and indicated that Woodward may not be jailed because of her potential. Let me give you his exact quote. It seems to me that if this was a one-off, a complete one-off, to prevent this extraordinary, able young lady from not following her long-held desire to enter the profession she wishes to, would be a sentence which would be too severe. Okay. What? She stabbed someone with a dull knife. She stabbed someone. Like, I'm not saying destroy her, okay, but really, what?
Yeah. Okay. First of all, to be fair to her, it was just a butter knife. Okay?
You can't go around stabbing people. This is insane. Okay, no, fair is fair, okay? If this was a story about a dude doing this to his girlfriend, people would be understandably outraged, right? I don't know if this is a gender thing. I think it's more of a privilege thing. And she's a very cute, attractive, young white girl.
To be fair to her.
Okay? And so, and there seems to be a lot of empathy for her. And I don't feel that that same empathy would exist in similar instances or similar cases involving people who look different.
Let her go! No, I'm kidding.
It's a freaking dull knife.
Okay. All right. So let's get real here for a second. Are there issues of privilege? Of course! Okay, now this is the UK, but let's just say, I don't know, so I can't comment enough about the UK. I know the American context. Mm-hmm. If you had a black male stab a woman in the leg with a knife and then throw a laptop at her, a glass, a jar at her, right?
While on drugs, by the way.
And their excuse was, no, but that's okay. I was really high and I'm an addict. And doesn't show up to trial. She's in Milan. Do you know that?
She's in Italy with her mother.
Okay.
What?
And says, I do look like, I've got a bright future ahead for me. Here's what's going to happen in America to that black male. 20 years, okay, about, right? So... And
again, look, I want everyone to understand, I'm not saying, like, throw the book at her, she should be in prison for 50 years, but here's the thing, it's assault, in the very minimum, it's assault, and it's involving a potentially deadly weapon. I know it's a dull knife, but it's still a knife.
Yeah, I don't know if dull makes it better or worse, but anyway.
You can't go around stabbing people.
Of course! Alright, so... And look, and if you're a poor white kid out of Nebraska and you stab somebody, you're probably going away for 20 years too. So, so, I think that it's that these judges, and I said the same thing with the Stanford rape case, right? They look at these people and think, there, but for the grace of God goes my kid.
That's exactly right.
Oh, but that's a good kid going to Stanford. That's
look
a good girl. Good. She's going to be a heart surgeon.
So sweet.
She's going to Oxford.
Cheeks, not blonde hair.
Okay, come on. Yeah. She doesn't look like a criminal.
Right.
It's probably a one-off. Now, how often when you're poor, again, doesn't matter what your race is, if you're poor, do you not look like a criminal? When you go in front of that same judge, all of a sudden they don't think it's a one-off. They don't think you have a bright future, and off to jail you go. So that's what's driving everybody crazy throughout the world, and that's what the establishment still doesn't understand to this day. And now I'm going to extrapolate a lot here, but I believe it. That's part of why you have all these anti-establishment votes. That's why you have Brexit. That's why you have the Trump vote. Because people are pissed. They're like, enough, man. When it comes to us, we get crushed. Our wages are stagnating. They're not going up. When we go in front of criminal justice, they maul us, right? I get a ticket, and then all of a sudden, I can't pay because I didn't get my paycheck in time, or I had to get a payday loan, and then it's doubled and it's tripled, and I'm totally screwed. And then they'll sometimes put you in jail for that because you owe it to the government. I mean, they will crush you in every conceivable way. And then when someone wealthy does something, I do declare, she has a bright future. I mean, she's going to Oxford. So, toodaloo, to say hi in Italy to her. If you didn't show up to court and you were poor, they wouldn't assume that you're fine and you'll show up later. They'd put out an arrest warrant for you and get your ass to jail immediately. And then they'd put you away for a long, long time. This is what we're pissed about.
Absolutely. And also, come on, guys. Why you gotta do Doctors Without Borders dirty like that?
I mean, look, she is in Italy without borders.
No, I get it.
She had no borders. It's too good a pun. It's too good a pun. You can't turn it down.
True,
Okay.
but...
Puns without borders. Okay. Oh my God, we're out of time. Okay, we're done.
We're done. We have TYT Classics today for our members. We do TYT Classics every Wednesday. It is not live, but you can check it out in the archives if you are a member. TYTnetwork.com/join. And we also have a post game, right?
That's right, absolutely, and it's going to be great. No more bathroom talk, though. Okay, all right.
Bye-bye.